Well, hello and welcome back. We are continuing working on our application. We're moving ahead a little bit here, and we've got a login, we've got security. This is Spring Boot, and now we're going to start talking a little bit. We're going to get a little more advanced next episode. We're going to talk a little more about some of the advanced time leaf stuff, but this episode we're going to get a registration screen going. So we'll talk a little bit about it. About time leaf, but really it's about getting our pieces set in place. Now what we want to do is we're going to take from here, which is our login screen, which is, yes, sort of ugly, but hey, it's there. We're going to give ourselves a register page. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create this register endpoint, this mapping, and that is in here somewhere. Where did I put it? There it is. That is right here. And so it's very simple. All we're going to do, much like we have with the others, is we're just going to create a registration page. We're going to look at that here in a moment. And we're going to give it a user, which is whoever the user is. Now, initially, notice that when we register, there is no user object, so we're just gonna, or there's no logged in user. So we're gonna create a new user object. We're gonna send that, so we're gonna get all of the defaults. We're gonna send into the registration page. That is gonna look relatively familiar. Here's our registration page. Now, if you look here, we've got a lot of our basic framework. So that we've got, we're using our time leaf, and I guess we don't need HTML twice. We have our header, and if you go all the way to the bottom here, we've got our footer. So we've got those two pieces in place. We really don't need to do this part. We don't need to do the focus. But what that does is that just gets us when we first start up. Technically, should get us in the right field, but it's not set up at this point anyway, so we're just going to go ahead and get rid of that. And we have your basic HTML type stuff here. We've got, as you can see here, some instructions. This is what we're really going to worry about as we get into the form itself. So we get down to registration, and one of the things we have, which we're not going to worry about, we'll come back to this. We've got a little if statement. We're going to see if we can, if we've successfully registered, but we're not actually going there this time. We'll deal with that later. Let's stick to the form itself. So if you look in the form, this is where it starts to get interesting. Let me go ahead and put that on the same line just because. Normally you're going to see a method, and that's you may see like a target or something like that. But here what we've got is we've got an action that's a time leaf action. And what we're going to do there is we're going to say, hey, this is the endpoint that we're going to. So when I post, which is right here, when I submit, it's going to do a post. And it's going to post to /register user, which we'll go look at here in a minute. And the object we're going to send is going to be the user itself. So if we look at that in our controller, we will see here's where our register user is. The method, if it's a post, then we're sending the user in. So that is our post that's saying, hey, I'm going to grab some information and I'm going to load it up and I'm going to send it back. I'm going to post it to this call. Now, what am I sending? That's where we build that out within the form. So with each of these, you don't have to worry about class. I'm not sure if I already talked about, but if you have a CSS, then that's just a CSS class or style. You need an ID and a name. Now these are just to avoid confusion. I think there's some ways you can play around with it, but honestly, to avoid confusion, it's so much easier to just make it the same as the value that you're working with. So here it's first name. We've got a little placeholder, so that's going to be the default, which you will see here, where it says enter first name until you enter something. And that's just, if you haven't seen a placeholder, that's just straight HTML. This is what's key, is it says for time leaf, it says this is a field, and it's going to be the first name field that is on the object, which is user. So if we go look at that, that means it's going to look for first name. Oh, let's do it proper case. Let's do first. It is going to look for first name, but it's not going to look for it here because that's private. It's going to look for your getter, which is here, and your setter, which is here. So that is what it's going to use when you set this up. Those are the things that it's going to use to actually store that value. And then we're not going to worry about this yet as far as errors and stuff like that. We will come back around to that. So right now, focus on our input. And we're going to do that for, you can see here, we've got 5 fields: first name, last name, email, password, and verify password. So we come in, we've got first name, we've got last name, we've got our email. And in each of these, the key is you're going to see that field. So there's going to be a get email, there's a get last name or set, and there's going to be a get and set password and a get and set verify password. And if you look at user, you can see that we have those. We have verify password, username. We don't and set that yet. First name, last name, and password and verify password. Oh, and email. So we've got each of those, and then we have matching getters and setters for each of those so that they will play nicely with our form. So when we come in and we submit, we just have a straight up submit. We don't have to do a time leaf submit or anything like that. And what that's going to do is that's going to come into our user register user, and we're going to come here and we can actually get out of this. Here we don't have to worry about it. It is going from, so all of these are going to be parameters essentially sitting on our request. And we can just do by name. So we have the login, we have email, we have password, we have verify password, and then somewhere down here, there we go, we have last name and first name. And I think that was everything that we had. First name, last name, email, password. Okay. We don't actually have a login, so this one's going to end up being empty. We don't really have to worry about it. Now here, I'm doing some extra checks. So I'm coming in and basically going through these and just saying, hey, do we have these are some nice little things like does password equal the verify password? If it doesn't, then it's going to die. So if I come in and I do, let's blow this up some so you can see it better. So if I do Bob Tester, his email is just going to be bob@bob.com. And the password is going to be 123456, and that's going to be 654321. If I try to register, it's going to kick me back here. Now, we're going to talk next time. We're going to talk about actually displaying these errors, which you're going to see here. It comes through right now. It is just storing some information, and it's basically just going to come back to that registration. So it just kicks it back. Now, what we're going to want to do is kick back some errors. Again, we will tackle that next time. We're going to get a little bit more into our some of our time leaf pieces. And then essentially all it does is it says, hey, do I have all the right stuff? If so, if everything passes its check, which is all of these, then we passed everything. So, okay, now we fall into essentially, I don't have to worry about this. This thing just generates a code, up to a 6-digit code. Random number for them to verify. It creates, which is what you need here. We're going to call this the applicant, I guess. But it creates this user. And by default, or what we have set up in users, we do have a constructor somewhere in here for user. Here we go. That takes email, password, name, and the verify. And sure enough, that's what we're using here. And by verify, it's verify code, not verify password. So it's a string, which we see here. And then what we need to do is we have to set a couple things because we don't send the first name, the last name, and we don't send a username. And that's all key. So we're just going to create the username. It's going to be last name, comma, first name. The first name is going to be the first name. Last name is going to be last name. Now we do have to create, because we're using our Spring Security, we're going to go ahead and set a role. And we're just going to make, when they register, it is a user role. And then all you're going to have to do is you go to your user DAO and then you save or update, which if we go here, it's going to be the IMPL of it. So if we go See, that's pretty small, but we're going to see user DAO, but we really want the IMPL of it. And if we do save or update, it's going to come in here and we just do some straight, some work that we've done. We've seen this before with our JDBC templates. We can either do an insert or we can do an update. From the template, it's just going to do an update. It doesn't matter which, you don't have to call insert versus update, because basically we're going to give it, really doesn't care, because we're going to give it the SQL. The SQL in the one case, if we've got an ID on the user already, then we're just going to update, which is what you can see here. And if we don't, then we are going to come in here and we're going to insert a new record. Now, one of the things we don't do is when we do a save or update, we don't update. If you look in here, it takes a little bit to look through it. We don't actually touch the password. The only time we actually do a password entry into a record is directly is from the insert, and then we've got a change password that we'll talk about at another time. So we come in, we do a save or update. So our DAO handles that piece of it. And then when it's done, all we need to do, we actually send out a welcome email. We don't have to worry about that. We have a message object that we're going to send depending on what page we're going to. And then we do a set view name to login. And so we now go back to our login because they have been registered, and so they can log in. Now we could actually log them in and send them someplace, but for now it's easier to do it this way. Now, one of the things we need to do to make this work is we do need our register and our register user. They have to be permitted to have access if you're not logged in. If you don't permit register, then it's going to take you to the login and you're just going to get stuck. If you don't have register user, it's going to take you to the login. So you can go to the registration page, but then it's going to give you issues because it's going to try to go to register user. It's not going to be able to. You're going to have to log in. So make sure from a security point of view, and this is where a better structure to have like an unsecure folder or something like that. So like we have static, we could have unsecure or public or something like that, and then we would shove our registration, our login page, those things would all be in there, or maybe even further down. Those will allow us to not have to log in order to see those pages, which you need because you're registering so that you can log in. And so we've got it really simple. So if we come in and we do Bob tester, and now we do, we're just going to do password 123 and password 123. This time it should work. And if we do, what was it, Bob at, I think it's Bob at bob.com, password 123. The only problem is it's not going to allow it because he's not been validated. We sent out that validation email, which I think we're going to see, yep, we hit a limit when we try to hit our email because this is off of a test account. But this is normally what you're going to see is just say, hey, you've been registered, click the link and go ahead and log in. What we can do is we can come over to our little, let's go to our database, our tables, our users, and we're going to see Bob Tester, and we can just mark him as verified. And now, if we log in, Bob at bob.com, tester, nope, password 123. Hopefully I entered it right. I probably didn't. Let's try it again. Let's go look to make sure I've got, he is Bob at bob.com. Oh, did I not enter it right? I may have mistyped the password, which would be so me. Nope. All right, I did something wrong here. Bob at bob.com, that's him. Let me see if, I wonder, I may not have saved that change. Let's see. Okay, sorry. Let's try that one more time. And so doing Doesn't like it. So I have something that I messed up. It's probably, it's not going to show here. So for some reason, it's not logging in. If I go to my security here, oh, it's where username. So it's not password, so I would need it to be that. That's my mistake. I've got to change up some of my prompts because we've copied some of this over. Now, boom, now I'm actually able to log in if I use my username correctly. So what we've been able to do is we've been able to turn on these pages, and we've played around with our time leaf a little bit, so we know, we now know, if I can drop this in the right place, we now know that if we're going to do a form, then we're going to have within a form, we're going to have that's the form, where the form goes. Here we go. We're going to have an object, and then we're going to save values to that object based on the TH field. And once we've got that, then we can actually send that back, like in this case, we can do a post, and we can save some data back. So we're going to be able to continue that. But first, since we're looking at our form here, one of the things that we see is we're going to have a list of objects that are coming back, and we need to be able to, in time leaf, walk through those and pull values out. We also are going to go ahead and grab the current username. So we've got a couple little things we're going to do focused on time leaf next time around. That being said, if you have any questions, shoot an email to info@developreneur.com. We're just going to keep chugging along here. If you have requests, particularly if there's something we've sort of skipped over, feel free to throw that out there, because I'm sure we can come back. Even if it's something simple, in these little 15-minute increments, it's not that hard for us to go put together an example and walk you through doing whatever that is that we maybe have sort of overlooked. Now, yes, we are sort of in the background moving some things rather quickly behind the scenes, but I'm trying to give you some good examples along the way, and maybe myself if I'm looking at this later. That being said, go out there and have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time.